All right, Husker Classics continues. Halftime of the game. You are listening on AM 590 WOW. Happy you're with us as we're talking about this game. 21-21 at halftime. Nick Handley, Grant Hansen. We're very, very happy to be joined with a big part of that game, big part of that season for Nebraska, and that is Omaha standout, Husker standout, Zach Potter joining us. And very few times do we have to raise our studio table here that tall, but we got big 6'7", right? Is what you're weighing?
Yeah,
that's
my
right.
kids love saying how tall I was over the last year and a half. So
that has to be hell for you.
It was, but luckily it's finally dying out.
Good.
It was a fun thing to have for a little bit.
there are. I know you have probably a library of memories at that field and at that stadium, both not only as a Husker but also as a junior J at Omaha Creighton Prep when you were in high school and part of a state championship team. But I want to start with the volume, because Grant and I were talking about this before we got into this game, this 2008 Nebraska-Colorado game. There are so many games you remember just because of the atmosphere, just because of the crowd noise. We experienced that recently with Nebraska-USC this year. I remember the 2014 Nebraska-Miami game. Colorado 24 was pretty electric. This thing was no slouch. I mean, it was a juiced-up crowd that day.
Yeah, I mean, there was so much going into that game. I mean, I'm pretty sure, was it senior day for me?
Yeah.
Yes. I think senior, I mean, see, you talk about, more than I do. But, I mean, senior day, it was a 2:30 kickoff, obviously late in the fall, so it gets dark early, so it ends up being a night game, even though it's a 2:30 kickoff. Obviously, there's tons of hatred between Nebraska and Colorado that we were excited for. And, it was a big game for us. That season for our senior year was so – it had gone so well for Bo's first year, right? After kind of a disappointing 2007 and to have the year that we were having in 2008, and then to have again, it was tied at halftime, like you guys just mentioned. And then, all the events that take place there in the fourth quarter, the game was, a pretty good game, I think, as it was going. It probably wasn't nearly as loud as the fourth quarter. Everybody remembers the fourth quarter. I mean, I know that's what I remember the most, of two crucial plays there toward the end. But, as far as the season had gone and just volume level in that stadium, I mean, it was rocking and rolling.
I want to take you back to our first quarter. In that first half, everybody just listened to Colorado jumped on you guys quick. I mean, there was a busted coverage, missed assignment, touchdown on like the first or second play. There's another big play score. And I recall a Lane Grindle sideline report where he described that the defensive line, you guys were all off by yourself. And then the linebackers and DBs were getting their butts chewed somewhere else midway through that first quarter. Do you remember what that was like on the sidelines after that start defensively?
I don't, but ultimately it had to be a conversation regarding of, hey, we got to just keep doing our job. And then, in this, you have the front line, then you have the back half, and you have the linebackers, and you have to gel together and play together as a team. But collectively, if the defensive line is being successful, that means the linebackers should be even more successful. Or if the D line is not doing well, the back seven got to be able to pick us up and hit the gaps and all those things. And so, I think we had a good year up until that point. Again, coming back from the previous year, but wanted to cap our 2008 season there at home. We just want to, kind of get past that first drive and know that there was still plenty of game left.
You mentioned how that season really transpired to that moment. That first year Bo Pelini, coming off of a coaching transition, which I want to get into a little bit later on too. But it was a tough start of the season. But you guys found yourself, and you get to that point, and we knew the thing about Bo Pelini, especially his time in Nebraska, never did worse than a 9-win season.
Yep.
At what point do you remember throughout the year where it just kind of clicked? I don't even know if it was a certain game, but just for you guys, not only defensively as a solid group, but also just collectively as a group, that you really felt, okay, this is starting to really kind of take shape?
I think collectively it probably started in the spring, truthfully. I mean, we had a pretty tight senior class there. Obviously a disappointing 2007 season. Coach Callahan gets to let go. Bo comes in, but there was so much kind of carryover in relationships with Bo because of the previous time that when he was there. Not only when he was there, but also just recruiting a lot of the players that were now seniors who had redshirted. And then obviously, you have a leader like Joey Gans come in to be our quarterback. We knew that, pre-NIL, Sam Keller was guaranteed this spot our junior year in 2007. Nothing against Sam, had a good career at Arizona State, came in, did some good things for us, but there was obviously some, commitments that were made between Coach Callahan and Sam prior to that season, where truthfully, I think a lot of us seniors, or would have been juniors at the time, knew that, Joe had sat on the bench and was ready to lead us that year, but then here comes Sam in there. And so when, turn the page, Bo's here, Coach Watson and Joe Gans had a great relationship from an offensive standpoint. And so kind of when he was able to take over and be the voice, I think allowed us to be successful there. But then ultimately from a defensive standpoint, you bring in Bo, you bring in Carl, John Papuchis, some of the other coaches that we had on that staff. And we had a pretty good defensive line at the time, senior wise and juniors that were behind us. And so it allowed us to kind of turn that page pretty quickly with a voice that was familiar to us and Coach Blaney.
There's something that struck me from the broadcast, the story that they had said you had told several times about during the Callahan era, or at least the year prior in 2007, you hadn't been allowed to stick your hands up and try to alter passes during practice. That changed in 2008 when Bo took over.
Yep.
And of course, that was a huge part of the game. You assisted on 2 interceptions. And then one, which obviously sealed the deal with Sue, was a replay of something that had played out earlier in the season. Just how did that change things for you and the way you affected games in that 2008 season once you were able to start getting your hands in passing lanes?
Well, it's one of those, you practice how you play, right? And so early in my career, I had my hand literally in a couple field goal blocks, and you practice those things. And so when you can't practice, I mean, you want the team to be successful during scout team, and let the ball get thrown so the secondary can make their read on a play against a receiver or a linebacker. And so they did not want us, batting balls down in practice. But once we were able to start doing that, I mean, it's training your hand-eye coordination of, timing of when he's throwing the ball to get your hand up right. Because as soon as you're engaged with an offensive lineman, as soon as you put your hands up, I mean, he can shove you right in the chest and you're going to fall back. And so it's a timing thing to make sure that you can still be involved in the play, even if you do miss the ball, or get your hand up and have an effect on the play, which, like you said, was successful.
Is there a specific science of any kind of getting it to a teammate behind you? Once it goes off your hand.
No, I mean, it's even going back to, like I just mentioned, some of the field goal blocks my freshman year. So many people are like, how do you do it? And yeah, I wanted to be, have some humor, and Coach Bush is telling us to do this. And I mean, really, we were just shoving the D lineman we had in front of us, in front of the snapper, because the rule is that you didn't care about the snapper at that point, and then trying to, leverage off him. And you were just getting lucky. I mean, I like to say, maybe it was my basketball career prior to that. I like to just say it was just our natural athletic ability that, when we got lucky. But at the same point, we did have to, jump and push off, Ola Doganduro, Barry Cryer, some of those guys were in front of us to get higher to make an impact. But to your point of, try to tip it the right way. I mean, we're not volleyball setters or anything like that. So, I'm probably the farthest thing from a volleyball setter you could ever think of. So no science in it.
Zach Potter is joining us, 21-21 of our Husker Classic 2008 Nebraska, Colorado. Before we get to the play that really punctuates this one, I want to get to the conversation on the sideline. Alex Henry, another local guy, Omaha Burke guy, so a guy that I know you also had battles with when it came to high school, not only the good old camaraderie between defensive linemen and special teams guys at college football, but there was obviously a conversation that was taking place, and folks listening to this game are going to hear going to the late, great Greg Sharp immediately saying, okay, well, they can't be kicking a field goal here. And then
can't be an option.
Then you hear Adrian Fiala say, well, no. And hear Matt Davison say, well, no. Lane Grindle pretty much saying, well, no. And then all of a sudden, boys, here we go. They're going to kick this one. I know there was a conversation on the sideline with Alex Henry really trying to convince Bo about this. Were you anywhere within earshot of that conversation, and what was going through your head when ultimately he gets the green light to give that a go?
Well, I think ultimately, I don't know if it was Bo that didn't want to do it or who wanted to do it. I think it truthfully might have been, I can't even remember who our special teams coach was, but ultimately one of those, like JP or someone's like, hey, we can kick this. We can do this. And, all the things were kind of against us, 57-yard field goal. I think it's still the longest kick in Nebraska history, but being late in the season, cold night,
cold air,
the ball's not going nearly as far. And, I know Alex really well. We're still good friends today. We have a golf match together tomorrow, actually.
Hey, good luck with that.
Yeah, thank you. And ultimately, he's such a nonchalant, ho-hum, like, can you make it? Yeah. You want to kick it? Sure. Like, it's and I think some of that nonchalantness is what did get Bo and say, let's do it. Let's give it a shot. Because I don't not to do the math quick off my head, but if he doesn't make that, we're backed up right away. Pretty close.
And how did that compare to, you think about that decision in context of the faked field goal that resulted in 7 points for Colorado on the other side? That was still, I'm sure that was lingering in his mind too. And yet you make the decision, hey, let's go risk this.
But I just think it's that kickers are a special breed, right? You got to trust them. And, whether he's an emotional kicker or a non-emotional kicker, Alex was the non-emotional kicker. And so it was always kind of, I think, hard to get a read do we trust him? Can he go do this? But, that's also what practice is for. And I think it was the right move. Obviously, it paid off. But when he said it, I was out on the left wing and had to block for it. And it's one of the coolest, memories that probably one of my top 5 memories from, my career there. The play we'll probably talk to after that is probably one of the other ones too. But, it's just going out there and thinking, okay, like they're bringing the house at us and we got to make sure we block these guys. And with it being a 57-yard field goal, naturally that trajectory, the kick can't go up right away. It's got to be line drive a little bit to get through there. So he, like we were just talking, we wanted to make sure that they weren't going to block it, get through a wing or something like that. So, it was when, you see the ball snapped and it's going through the air and you're just kind of hoping and praying, like, please go in. And it did. And that, that's kind of started the celebration. And then it just kept getting better and better.
It'd be one thing if that was a walk-off. Obviously it wasn't. You guys, as in the defense, had to make one last stand. Cody Hawkins and that offense, which they were a pretty potent offense coming in. And we saw that throughout that game. There were some big plays against the defense you guys had, which was a solid defense. I know that type of play and that type of boost that Alex gives you guys gives you the lead, but just going out there. Yeah. And that's where you can hear the crowd at a fever pitch. Yep. They knew the moment. What do you remember leading up to that final part? That interception.
Did that make it 33-31?
33-31. Yeah.
33-31.
So again, we have to play smart too, because we're trying to make sure that they don't get in field goal range to do the same thing that we just did to go have the walk off.
And they had a good return man too.
Yeah. And so, you got to kind of mind your P's and Q's, and you can't risk too much, because if you give up a big play, boom, they're right in field goal position. So that was a huge thought going out there. And then ultimately we knew they were likely going to, I don't know how much time was really left.
It's about a minute 48. Yeah, I think a minute 48. Yeah.
So again, time of possession still in play there. Obviously college, the ball stops with the first down. So, they could still mix in some runs, but we knew they were going to have to pass it a little bit more than run it. And obviously some things led to some good things there.
So you got your hand on that pass, that fateful 2nd down and 10 pass. What happens after that?
Pure chaos.
You blocked somebody too. You got the hand up, and I saw you seal somebody right there too. So your job wasn't done apparently.
Ultimately, it's been fun over the last however many years. Talking to Sue about it, and he's come around after I've given him grief so long for not giving me credit for tipping the pass or setting it to him. He started to give me credit a little bit here and there for tipping it to him. But I tipped that pass, he catches it. He's rumbling down the sidelines and just manhauls Cody Hawkins. And then if you remember how the stadium used to be set up, like he trucks Cody and then he takes the ball once he gets in zone and just chucks it at the fence, which is where all the handicap accessible people are sitting. Just think how scary that had to be of here comes Sue, the crowd's going nuts, and here comes this football, and he just chucks at you.
He'd probably throw a fastball.
And then one of the other best memories, if you go back and look at this picture on video, Ty Steinkooler, number 43, the other defensive tackle, is running down the field with his helmet in the air, which naturally should have been a penalty.
I was going to say, so
you've
got the football chuck. You've got that.
You got Cody's dead on the sidelines. His dad looking over at him like, oh, geez, son, what'd you just do? And then you got Sign running down there. And it's just from there, it's just pure chaos. And it was so fitting for that season and for Bo coming back. And a lot of the hard work that our team, especially our defense, put together that year, because in 2007, our defense, we were really kind of the ones that let us down. I mean, our offense was pretty good several games of that year that we should have been more successul.
Well, even the Colorado game the year before, I mean, both teams over 50 points. It was a shootout.
Yeah, we wore the all white uniforms, which everybody hates. I think they look really good.
I like them too.
But man,
I'm not a big uniform police guy,
but you know, we went out there all whites, and we just got hammered. I mean, again, it was like 50-50 plus. I think that 2007, there was one game we scored 70. The next week we gave up 70. I mean, it was just a mess between Kansas and Kansas State, those two games. So it made 2008 very rewarding. And then, go on to play Clemson in the Gator Bowl against Dabo Swinney, which was also kind of fun to watch the two careers of Dabo and Bo over the years. Yep. So it was a really cool cherry on top moment for the season, and especially for us as a senior class.
I want to ask you about Sue for a second. Just how did he go about his business even then in 2008?
He was a completely different player. Sue was a good player, through 2007. When Bo and Carl got there and he decided to come back and all those things for the 2009 season. But Bo and Carl shaped Sue to who he was, not only as a football player, but more mentally as a football player, how to study the game. And that allowed him and then Jared Crick also to be very successful in their time in their last couple of years. Obviously, I went on to the NFL in 2009. I would have loved to have one more year to kind of play with those guys in 2009. That would have been a riot. But Sue was very businesslike. Sue was very committed to his construction management degree, which is what his dad was part of growing up. So he's been very involved with that. So he was involved in school, but he was also very anxious to play football and make it to the NFL. And he knew by that time, toward the end of that 2008 season and into 2009, where he was going to be collectively and where he was likely to go in the draft. And, Sam Bradford went one, he went two. I still think, it would have been interesting to see if he would have went one, but he still got cheated out of the Heisman, I think, ultimately, for sure. So
talking with Zach Potter, we're going to keep you here for about 5 more minutes. Get back to the second half of the 2008 Nebraska-Colorado game, 21-21 at halftime, as you are listening to that one. Zach, the other part about, your story too, coming from Omaha Creighton Prep, you talked about those relationships that Bo Pelini built as a DC early in his stint, that final season with Frank Solich. You wind up at Nebraska under Bill Callahan, and really a solid coaching staff. Guys like John Blake. You look at a lot of different guys on that coaching staff. Jay Norvell. I mean, there were a lot of good coaches. Even Bill Callahan, regarded as one of the best offensive line coaches between the NFL and college ball. It was an interesting fit, but the transition for you, what was that like, going from the majority of your college career under that coaching staff and then really going through what was just a tumultuous 2007 into 2008? And for guys like you, seniors and leaders that had to kind of right that ship and keep everybody together, what was that like for you?
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, Coach Callahan is, I think, still highly regarded as one of the best XO's coaches, if not only just an offensive line coach as a guru. But we had some really good staff. I mean, that was the one thing that we, and I think a lot of people recognized in 2008 when Coach Callahan got let go, the cupboard wasn't bare. I mean, we recruited. I mean, our 2005 recruiting class was pretty heavily recruited. Obviously, a lot of guys in that class. There were some good guys from the 2004 class that he recruited that redshirted, that ended up being seniors, and then plenty of guys that they recruited those couple of years. But, transition in coaching is never easy. Now you're seeing a lot more in this day and age with, players leaving, but back then players weren't transferring all that much, or nearly not like they are today, but coaches would move on. And so the biggest thing is just that relationship that you have with your position coach, and then obviously your offense or defensive coordinator, and understanding the playbook and going through those. But it's also the relationships. I remember when we had Blake was there, but then Buddy Wyatt came in for a year to coach D-line, and it's like, okay, like I need to completely earn his trust again. My film, what I have on file is my resume, but I need to get to know him so he knows where to put me. Because, I could just showed up every day. I'm like, well, yeah, I backed up Adam Carricker for 2 years. I should be the starter next year, but I had to go out and earn that position with these new coaches. So transition's never easy, player coach, but at the end of the day, that's what the field's for. You got to go out and earn it each and every day.
Give folks an update. What are you up to these days? How do you keep yourself busy?
So I like to play golf, as I mentioned, with Alex Henry.
By the way, who's a better golfer?
Alex. He's a better putter.
Okay, but
Oh.
I'm assuming
We're pretty.
I'm
we're
assuming
pretty
that I'm
close.
assuming the D stick is probably your strength.
Yeah.
Like what, are you still hitting
Yeah.
about 300?
Yeah, totally.
Attaboy.
But besides golf, I run an audiovisual company here in Omaha called CCS Presentation Systems. So we do AV integration for corporate and education here in Omaha.
Cool.
Staying busy as a coach.
Yeah,
as well.
coaching.
A coach, I coach football and basketball. Those are my two loves. Baseball, I'm a very good armchair quarterback. As you can tell by my voice, I just yell constantly at kids from the stands. I don't know anything about baseball. Is always my joke, but it's a lot of fun. I got a 12-year-old daughter, 10-year-old, and 8-year-old boys that love to play sports. My daughter's into acting and voice, and kids keep you busy, and it's a lot of fun.
One of the great, not only Husker defensive lineman that we've seen in recent time, but also one of the great prep players. When I say prep, not only mean Omaha Creighton prep, but here in the state of Nebraska, the metro area, part of that outstanding 2004 state championship team at Omaha Creighton Prep. So you experienced a lot of great memories at Memorial Stadium, but I'm sure this game, this 2008 Nebraska-Colorado one, is one that's right up there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, top 3 moments of being at Memorial Stadium are probably, the 2004 state championship, like you mentioned, where we beat Miller North. Probably the first time walking out in a tunnel walk for Nebraska. I guess that's twice because my freshman year we were in South Stadium and we moved over to North Stadium. So that's kind of a 1A, 1B. But then, but yeah, definitely, senior year going out the way that we did, even if that win would have just happened, it would have been phenomenal to go out that way. But to have, the field goal for Alex go in, being on the field, seeing that go through the uprights, and then obviously the Sioux interception, just kind of the cherry on top of your moments at Memorial Stadium. And when I go back there now with the kids and we go down and walk they want to go down and touch players' hands at halftime, and I still look at these guys. I'm still a big guy, and I'm like, holy smokes, these guys are just huge. But it's so fun and rewarding to see my kids experience what I got to experience as a kid, and then also what I got to experience as a player. And it's just what makes, the Nebraska tradition so awesome, and the fan base so awesome. So I appreciate everything that Nebraska has done for me.
Zach, appreciate you stopping in as we get folks ready for the second half of this game. But not only congrats on what was a tremendous career, but all the best going forward, man. Sounds like things are going well for Zach Potter.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Coming up, we got second half of the 2008 Nebraska-Colorado game tied at halftime, 21-21. Enjoy the second half.